Welcome back. Have you ever looked at a Lincoln Memorial penny and wondered why some collectors are willing to pay big money for a coin that originally had a value of just 1 cent? Today, we're taking a closer look at Lincoln Memorial pennies from the United States and the fascinating details that can make certain examples much more desirable. At first glance, these coins may look ordinary, but the date, mint mark, condition, errors, varieties, and overall quality can make a major difference. Some examples are common and worth only a small premium, while particularly rare or high-grade coins can bring impressive prices. So before you toss those old Lincoln Memorial pennies into a jar or spend them as ordinary change, stay with us until the end. We'll explore what collectors look for, discuss current 2026 market values, and reveal the features that could make a Lincoln Memorial penny stand out from the millions of others produced. Let's begin the hunt. Let's get started. First up, the 1971 Lincoln Memorial 1 cent, a United States Lincoln Memorial cent carrying the S mint mark, indicating that it was struck at the San Francisco Mint. This coin has a face value of just 1 cent, but collectors know that certain examples can become much more interesting depending on condition, color, strike quality, varieties, and errors. The Lincoln Memorial design had already become a familiar part of American pocket change by 1971. The obverse features the famous portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, originally designed by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. The 1971 regular strike cent was produced in very large numbers, about 528.35 million pieces according to PCGS data, so an ordinary circulated example is generally not rare. However, the important point for collectors is that a large mintage does not mean every surviving coin is equally valuable. One of the first details to check on this coin is the S mint mark, located on the obverse below the date. That small letter tells us that the coin was produced at the San Francisco Mint rather than Philadelphia or Denver. The 1971 cent was made from the traditional copper alloy composition used for Lincoln cents of the period. PCGS lists the regular strike coin at approximately 3.11 grams and 19 millimeters in diameter, with a composition of about 95% copper and 5% other metals. These specifications are useful when examining an old coin, because unusual weight, diameter, or metal characteristics can sometimes point toward an error or altered piece. Collectors should also remember that the regular 1971 cent should not automatically be confused with the separate 1971 proof cent. The San Francisco Mint also produced more than 3.2 million proof cents that year, creating another collectible version with different characteristics and values. When someone discovers an old 1971 penny, the first reaction may be to assume that its age alone makes it extremely valuable. In reality, age is only one factor in coin collecting. The condition of the coin is extremely important. A heavily circulated example with scratches, discoloration, dents, or worn details will normally have a much lower collector value than a sharply preserved example with strong original color and minimal marks. Current price information shows that ordinary 1971 regular strike cents can remain relatively inexpensive even in lower mint state grades. Numista's current CPG figures, for example, list approximate retail indications around $0.40 in MS60, $0.90 in MS64, $8 in MS65, $27 in MS66, and $170 in MS67 for the regular 1971 issue. These are guide-level figures, not guaranteed selling prices, but they demonstrate how dramatically condition can affect a coin's value. For a 1971 Lincoln cent, collectors should carefully examine the overall preservation of both sides. On the obverse, look at Lincoln's portrait, the date, the words Liberty and In God We Trust, and the area surrounding the S mint mark. On the reverse, inspect the Lincoln Memorial, the inscriptions United States of America, EPLUIBUSUNUM, and 1 cent. Original red coloration can be particularly desirable on copper cents because it indicates that the coin has retained much of its original appearance rather than developing a brown or mixed coloration. PCGS separates regular 1971 cents into brown, and red categories, and very high-grade red examples can command substantially more attention. PCGS records an auction result of $4,500 for a 1971 MS67 plus RD example, showing that exceptional condition can push a coin far above the value of a normal circulated penny. Another major reason collectors examine 1971 cents is the possibility of a die variety or double die error. A normal 1971 cent is common, but a genuinely recognized double die variety can be much more desirable. The key word is genuine. Many coins show machine doubling, die deterioration, scratches, or post-mint damage that can look unusual to an inexperienced collector, but does not necessarily create major value. The 1971 issue is known with double die varieties, including examples involving both regular and proof coins. Collectors should therefore examine lettering and design elements carefully and compare unusual features with recognized variety references. If a suspected double die appears convincing, professional attribution and certification can be worthwhile before assuming a very high value. This is where the 1971 Lincoln cent becomes especially interesting. A normal old 1971 penny is not automatically worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Most circulated examples remain close to face value or modest collector value. However, exceptional coins can be worth considerably more. Current market references show that high-grade regular strike examples can reach the hundreds of dollars, while documented auction results for extraordinary pieces can go into the thousands. PCGS lists the $4,500 auction record for an MS67 plus RD regular 1971 cent, while its separate 1971 proof category has an auction record of $17,250 for a PR69 example. The proof record is for a different version of the coin and should not be presented as the normal value of a circulated 1971 cent. This distinction is extremely important when making a serious valuation. If you have a 1971 Lincoln Memorial cent in old condition, do not clean it, polish it, scrape it, or apply chemicals to make it look newer. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may reduce collector interest. Instead, hold the coin by its edges and examine it under good lighting. Check the date, confirm the S-mint mark, inspect the surfaces for unusual doubling or other possible varieties, and look carefully at the original color. Also consider whether the coin appears to have been circulated or whether it may qualify for a high mint state grade. For an ordinary circulated example, expensive professional grading may not make financial sense. But if the coin appears exceptionally preserved or shows a potentially significant variety, certification from a respected grading service can provide a more reliable assessment. The current price guides themselves emphasize that values are indications rather than guaranteed transaction prices. So if you discover a 1971 Lincoln Memorial 1 cent, remember that the story is not simply about the year or the S-mint mark. The regular issue had a large production of roughly 528 million coins, meaning most examples are not rare. The real collector interest comes from exceptional preservation, attractive original red color, very high grades, recognized varieties, double dies, and unusual mint errors. Current market references suggest that ordinary examples may be worth only a small premium, while high-grade pieces can reach tens or hundreds of dollars, and extraordinary certified examples have brought thousands of dollars at auction. The separate 1971 proof issue can have different values altogether. Important value disclaimer: market prices change with grade, certification, color designation, variety, authenticity, eye appeal, and actual auction results. The values mentioned in this video are reference market estimates and documented examples, not a guarantee that every 1971 penny will sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars. If you believe you have a rare variety or exceptional specimen, compare it with reputable price guides and consider professional authentication before making a buying or selling decision. Next up, the 1973 Lincoln Memorial cent is an interesting part of the long-running Lincoln cent series. The Lincoln Memorial design had been introduced in 1959, replacing the famous wheat reverse. By 1973, the Lincoln portrait had already been appearing on American cents for more than 6 decades. The 1973 D was produced at the Denver Mint, and the small D mint mark underneath the date identifies its origin. Although millions of these cents were made, collectors still examine them carefully because condition, errors, varieties, and exceptional quality can make individual examples much more interesting than an ordinary circulated coin. The obverse of this 1 cent coin features the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Above Lincoln is the inscription "In God We Trust," while Liberty appears to the left and the date 1973 appears on the right. Directly beneath the date is the important D mint mark, showing that the coin was struck at Denver. When you turn the coin over, you see Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial reverse, which was used on Lincoln cents beginning in 1959. The reverse displays the Lincoln Memorial Building surrounded by United States of America, EPLURBUSUNUM, and 1 cent. These familiar details make the 1973D easy to identify, but collectors should look beyond the basic design because the coin's condition and any unusual mint-made characteristics are what can potentially create a premium. One important fact every collector should understand is that a coin being old does not automatically mean it is rare. The 1973D Lincoln cent had a reported mintage of approximately 3.55 billion pieces, so this was a heavily produced circulating coin rather than a low mintage rarity. That large production number explains why ordinary 1973D cents can still be found today. However, billions produced does not mean every surviving example has the same value. Millions of coins were spent, carried in pockets, exposed to moisture, scratched, stained, or otherwise damaged over the decades. Coins that survived with unusually attractive surfaces and strong original color are a different collecting category. That is why collectors should always examine the individual coin rather than judging it only by its date. If your 1973D Lincoln cent is in fine condition, it will normally show clear evidence of circulation. Lincoln's hair and facial details will have some wear, and the highest points of the memorial design on the reverse may also show flattening. You may notice small marks, scratches, discoloration, or darker areas caused by years of handling and storage. A fine-condition coin can still be a nice collectible, especially if it has an attractive appearance and no major damage, but it generally should not be described as automatically worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The major premiums associated with modern Lincoln cents are more often found in exceptionally high grades, special varieties, or authenticated mint errors. Therefore, if your 1973D is genuinely only fine, its realistic value should be judged differently from a nearly perfect certified specimen. Now let's talk about the part that attracts the most attention, the current market value. A normal circulated 1973D Lincoln cent is generally a modest value coin, and a fine condition example should not automatically be expected to bring hundreds or thousands of dollars. High-grade examples can be worth more, particularly when they have strong preservation and attractive original color. The important point is that extremely high asking prices seen online do not mean every 1973D penny is worth that amount. A seller can list a common coin for almost any price, but an actual market value depends on what comparable coins have realistically sold for and on the specific grade and characteristics of the coin. For a normal fine-condition 1973D, think of it as an interesting collectible rather than a guaranteed fortune. Exceptional certified examples can command premiums, but those are completely different from ordinary circulated pieces. The real treasure hunt begins when you inspect the coin closely. Look at the 1973 date and demint mark, then examine Lincoln's portrait, the lettering, and the rim. On the reverse, carefully inspect the Lincoln Memorial, columns, lettering, and denomination. Collectors are especially interested in genuine mint-made errors such as off-center strikes, clipped planchets, major die breaks, or other unusual production mistakes. But be careful, scratches, dents, environmental damage, machine doubling, and post-mint alterations are not automatically valuable errors. If you see something unusual, do not clean or polish the coin. Photograph it under good lighting, and if the feature appears significant, consider having it examined by an experienced numismatist or professional grading service. A genuine error supported by authentication can make a major difference compared with an ordinary circulated example. Another important factor is the coin's surface and color. Lincoln cents from this era can be described using color designations such as brown, red-brown, or red when they are professionally graded. A coin that retains attractive original color and clean surfaces can be much more desirable than a heavily spotted or damaged example. Collectors also look for strong strikes, minimal contact marks, and sharp lettering. If your 1973D penny has been cleaned, polished, scratched, or chemically altered, that can reduce its desirability even if it looks shiny. So if you discover one of these coins, resist the temptation to make it look new. Leave the surfaces alone and concentrate on identifying the coin's natural condition. In the world of coin collecting, originality can be far more important than artificial shine. So, is the 1973D Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin a rare treasure worth thousands of dollars? For an ordinary fine-condition example, the answer is generally no. The coin's large mintage means it is not automatically a high-value rarity, but that does not mean you should ignore it. A 1973D with an unusual mint error, important variety, exceptional preservation, or outstanding certified grade could be considerably more interesting to collectors. The best approach is to check the date, confirm the D-mint mark, study both sides under good lighting, avoid cleaning, and compare the coin with reliable numismatic references and actual sales. Important value disclaimer. Coin prices can change based on grade, certification, color, surface quality, variety, error status, authenticity, collector demand, and actual auction results. The values discussed in this video are reference market estimates, not a guarantee that every 1973D Lincoln cent will sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars. Always verify current market information before buying or selling. Next up, the 1975D Lincoln Memorial 1 cent, a United States coin struck at the Denver Mint and identified by the small D mint mark beneath the date. This penny is now more than 50 years old, making it an interesting piece of American coinage history. However, being old does not automatically make a coin rare or extremely valuable. The 1975D had a very large mintage of more than 4.5 billion coins, so the date itself is considered common. Even so, individual examples can become much more desirable when they have exceptional preservation, attractive original copper color, a strong strike, a recognized variety, or a genuine mint error. This is why collectors carefully examine old Lincoln Memorial cents instead of judging them only by their age. The 1975D cent belongs to the famous Lincoln Memorial cent series, which began in 1959. That year, the United States changed the reverse of the Lincoln cent from the historic wheat ears design to an image of the Lincoln Memorial. The obverse continued to feature Abraham Lincoln, based on the original design by Victor David Brenner, while the memorial reverse was designed by Frank Gasparo. The Lincoln Memorial design quickly became one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage, and remained on the cent for decades. In 1975, billions of pennies were needed for everyday commerce, and the Denver Mint produced a huge quantity of Lincoln Memorial cents. Because so many were made, most ordinary examples remain relatively easy to find today. Identifying a 1975D Lincoln Memorial cent is fairly simple. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln faces right. Above his portrait is "In God We Trust," while Liberty appears to the left and the date 1975 appears on the right. Directly beneath the date is the small D mint mark, which tells us that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. On the reverse, you will see the Lincoln Memorial surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, 1 cent, and EPLURBUSUNUM. The traditional copper version weighs approximately 3.11 grams and measures about 19 millimeters in diameter. These identifying details are important because they help collectors confirm exactly which Lincoln cent they have before beginning a detailed value examination. One of the most important factors when evaluating a 1975D Lincoln Memorial cent is its condition. If your example is in good condition, it will normally show noticeable wear from years of circulation. Lincoln's hair and facial details may be worn, while the memorial, lettering, and other design elements on the reverse can also show significant wear. Collectors should inspect the surfaces carefully for scratches, stains, corrosion, dents, or signs of cleaning. For uncirculated copper cents, original color can also make a major difference. Collectors generally classify copper Lincoln cents as brown, red-brown, or red. A naturally preserved red example with strong details and attractive surfaces can be much more desirable than an ordinary circulated coin. The important point is that the 1975D date and D mint mark alone do not make the coin rare. Now let's discuss the question many collectors want answered. How much is a 1975D Lincoln Memorial 1 cent worth today? The answer depends heavily on the individual coin's condition and characteristics. A normal circulated 1975D penny in good condition generally does not have a value of hundreds or thousands of dollars simply because it is more than 50 years old. Most circulated examples have modest value and may remain close to their face value. However, exceptional uncirculated examples can be considerably more desirable. For example, PCGS records a $4,113 auction result for a 1975D Lincoln cent graded MS67 plus red, demonstrating that an exceptionally preserved specimen can sell for a substantial premium compared with an ordinary circulated penny. This is an important distinction for anyone searching through old coins. The interesting part of coin collecting is that the value of a common date can change dramatically when an individual example is unusual. A 1975D cent with an exceptionally high grade, beautiful original red color, strong strike, or a legitimate mint error may attract serious collector attention. High-grade coins are difficult to preserve because even tiny marks, scratches, or spots can prevent a coin from receiving the highest grades. Collectors may also search for major mint errors such as significant off-center strikes, clipped planchets, dramatic die cracks, or other authentic production mistakes. However, not every unusual mark is an error. Damage that occurred after the coin left the mint can look unusual, but normally does not carry the same collector premium. This is why authentication is important when a coin appears especially unusual. If you discover a 1975D Lincoln Memorial penny, take a few minutes to examine it carefully before spending it. First, confirm the 1975 date and the D mint mark. Then inspect Lincoln's portrait, hair, lettering, rim, and surrounding fields. Look for unusual doubling or other characteristics that may deserve further investigation. Turn the coin over and examine the Lincoln Memorial, columns, lettering, and rim. Check for possible off-center striking, clipped areas, die cracks, or other genuine mint-made errors. Pay attention to the coin's overall surface and original color as well. Most importantly, do not clean the coin. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may reduce its collector appeal. If your coin appears to be unusually well preserved or contains a potentially significant mint error, professional grading and authentication may be worthwhile. So what is the real story behind the 1975D Lincoln Memorial 1 cent? Although this coin was produced in very large numbers, individual examples can still become highly collectible when they are preserved in exceptional condition, display beautiful original color, contain a recognized variety, or feature a genuine mint error. A normal circulated 1975D penny is generally modest in value, so collectors should not assume that every example is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The real value depends on the coin's condition, grade, originality, rarity, variety, error status, certification, and current collector demand. Before cleaning, selling, or purchasing a potentially valuable example, carefully examine the coin and compare it with reliable market information. If your 1975D cent appears unusually rare or valuable, having it professionally evaluated and authenticated can help determine its true market potential. Remember, the prices mentioned in this video are reference market estimates, not guaranteed selling prices, because actual values can change with market conditions and individual auction results. So before you spend that old penny, take a closer look. You may discover something worth keeping. Next up, the 1977D Lincoln Memorial 1 cent, a United States coin struck at the Denver Mint. At first glance, this penny may look like an ordinary coin, but collectors know that small details can sometimes make a major difference in value. The 1977D is not considered rare simply because of its age, since billions were produced. However, collectors can become very interested in examples with exceptional preservation, attractive original color, strong strikes, unusual varieties, or genuine mint errors. The key is understanding the difference between a normal circulated 1977D and an exceptional example. So, if you have one of these pennies in your collection, don't judge it only by its date. Take a closer look, because the condition and characteristics of the individual coin are what really matter. The 1977D cent belongs to the famous Lincoln Memorial cent series, which began in 1959 when the United States Mint replaced the original wheat reverse with the Lincoln Memorial design. The obverse continued to feature Abraham Lincoln's portrait, created by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse showed the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparro. The 1977D was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small letter D underneath the date on the obverse. The standard coin weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures about 19 millimeters in diameter, and was made primarily of copper. More than 4.19 billion 1977D cents were produced, making the date common in comparison with genuinely scarce Lincoln cents. Because so many were made, the ordinary circulated examples generally do not bring enormous prices. However, decades of circulation have removed many coins from the possibility of achieving the highest grades, which is why exceptionally preserved examples can attract much greater collector interest. When examining a 1977D Lincoln cent, start with the obverse. You should see Lincoln facing right, with "In God We Trust" above his portrait, Liberty beside him, and the date 1977 on the right. Directly beneath the date is the small D mint mark, confirming that the coin was produced in Denver. On the reverse, you will see the Lincoln Memorial surrounded by the inscriptions EPLURBUSUNUM, United States of America, and 1 cent. Collectors carefully inspect these details because the sharpness of the design can reveal how well the coin was preserved. The rim should also be examined for damage or unusual characteristics. Another important factor is the coin's original color. Copper Lincoln cents may be described as brown, or red, and a high-grade coin retaining attractive original red color can be considerably more desirable than a heavily discolored or circulated example. Condition is one of the most important factors when determining the market value of a 1970 penny. A coin that has circulated for years may show wear on Lincoln's hair, cheek, jaw, and other raised areas. It may also have scratches, dents, stains, or dark discoloration. Such an ordinary circulated coin generally has little additional value. An uncirculated coin is a different story. Collectors look for strong mint luster, sharp details, clean fields, minimal contact marks, and attractive original color. High-grade red examples can be especially desirable. Current market guides show that values increase significantly as the grade rises. For example, published guides for 1970 red examples show modest values at lower uncirculated grades, but considerably higher guide values at MS65, MS66, and MS67. This demonstrates an important lesson for collectors. The date alone does not determine the value. Two 1970 pennies can look similar at first glance while having dramatically different values once their grades, surfaces, and color are properly evaluated. So how much is a 1970 Lincoln Memorial penny worth in today's market? The honest answer is that there is a very wide range, depending on the individual coin. Most ordinary circulated examples are worth only a small amount above face value, if anything, while attractive uncirculated examples can bring a premium. Certified high-grade coins can be much more valuable. For example, documented PCGS auction information shows a 1970 MS63 red-brown example selling for $1,260 in June 2024. Even more impressive, PCGS records a 1970 MS68 red example selling for $7,050 in 2016. These are exceptional certified coins, not typical examples found in circulation. They demonstrate how dramatically the market can change when a coin reaches an unusually high grade. Therefore, viewers should never assume that every 1970 penny is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The large values belong to specific coins with exceptional grades or characteristics, and actual selling prices can change according to market demand and auction conditions. Another area collectors should investigate is the possibility of genuine mint errors or recognized varieties. During the minting process, mistakes can occasionally occur, and a significant authenticated error can make a coin much more interesting to collectors. When examining your 1970, look carefully at the lettering, date, rim, surfaces, and overall strike. You may notice something that appears unusual, but remember that not every unusual mark is a mint error. Scratches, dents, corrosion, cleaning damage, and damage caused after the coin left the mint can easily be mistaken for an error. A genuine error should be carefully identified, and when the potential value is significant, professionally authenticated. Do not clean or polish the coin while examining it. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may reduce its desirability. If you believe you have found something unusual, compare it with trusted numismatic references and seek professional advice before assuming that it is rare. The interesting part of collecting the 1970 is that rarity can come from condition rather than mintage. More than 4 billion coins were struck, but far fewer have survived in outstanding condition with the characteristics required for the highest grades. Collectors seeking registry-quality Lincoln cents can compete for exceptional examples, especially coins with strong strikes, attractive red color, and very few marks. This creates a major difference between a common circulated penny and a superb certified specimen. The 1970 therefore teaches an important lesson about coin collecting. An old coin does not automatically have to be rare, and a common coin does not automatically have to be worthless. Sometimes the most interesting coins are ordinary dates that have survived in extraordinary condition. That is why careful examination remains so important, even when the coin initially appears to be common. The 1970 Lincoln Memorial 1 cent is an interesting piece of American coinage history and a great example of how condition can transform the collector value of an otherwise common coin. With more than 4.19 billion pieces struck, an ordinary circulated 1970 is not a coin that should automatically be advertised as a fortune. However, exceptionally high-grade certified examples have demonstrated substantially stronger market results, including documented four-figure and even higher sales. The important thing is to identify exactly what you have before assigning a value. Check the date, confirm the D-mint mark, examine the surfaces, study the color, look for strong details, and investigate any unusual features carefully. Important value disclaimer. Coin market values can change based on grade, certification, color designation, surface condition, varieties, errors, authenticity, collector demand, and actual auction results. The values discussed in this video are reference market estimates and documented examples, not guaranteed selling prices. An ordinary circulated 1977 Lincoln cent should not automatically be considered worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Always verify current market prices and consult a qualified coin professional before making any decision about your coin next up. The 1978 Lincoln Memorial Cent was produced at a time when the United States Mint was making billions of cents for everyday commerce. The no mint mark version is associated with Philadelphia, although an important detail is that West Point also struck Lincoln cents in 1978 without mint marks, making individual pieces impossible to distinguish by mint solely from the absence of a mark. Philadelphia's reported mintage was 5,558,605,000 pieces, while West Point contributed roughly 1.5 billion additional cents. So while the ordinary 1978 no-mint mark cent is not automatically rare, an exceptional example can still attract collectors. In today's market, the real excitement comes from discovering a coin with unusually strong preservation, brilliant red color, a high certified grade, or an important minting error. The 1978 Lincoln Memorial Cent belongs to the famous Lincoln Cent series that began in 1909, while the Lincoln Memorial Reverse had been introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1978, the memorial design had already become one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage. The obverse shows Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln, with the inscriptions in God We Trust, Liberty, and the date 1978. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparro, displays the Lincoln Memorial with United States of America, EPLUOBUSUNUM, and 1 cent. The tiny initials FG, representing Frank Gasparro, appear near the bottom right area of the memorial design. The 1978 cent was struck in a traditional copper alloy containing approximately 95% copper and 5% zinc, with a diameter of about 19 millimeters and a weight of approximately 3.11 grams. One of the first things collectors notice on a 1978 Lincoln Memorial Cent is the absence of a mint mark. For coins struck at Philadelphia during this era, no mint mark was used, so the area below the date is blank. This is completely normal and does not by itself mean the coin is an error or an extremely rare variety. However, 1978 has an interesting twist. West Point also produced approximately 1.5 billion cents without mint marks. Because those West Point pieces cannot be separated from Philadelphia examples simply by looking at the coin, collectors generally identify the no mint mark issue as the 1978 Philadelphia type cent rather than claiming that a particular unmarked coin definitely came from West Point. This is an important point for viewers because many online claims exaggerate the value of an ordinary missing mint mark 1978 penny. The blank space where a mint mark would normally appear is interesting, but it is not sufficient evidence of rarity. The 1978 cent has several details worth examining carefully. On the obverse, look at Lincoln's hair, cheek, jawline, coat, lettering, and the date. On a high-quality uncirculated example, these details should remain sharp, with minimal contact marks and strong original surface quality. On the reverse, pay particular attention to the Lincoln Memorial's columns, roofline, lettering, and the tiny architectural details. PCGS notes that 1978 cents generally show strong details, partly because the mint transitioned to a new reverse hub during that year, providing greater clarity to parts of the memorial design. This makes a sharply struck 1978 cent especially attractive to collectors. Also examine the coin for unusual doubling, off-center striking, die cracks, clipped planchets, broad strikes, or other genuine mint errors. A normal coin should never be advertised as rare merely because it looks old or has no mint mark. Authentication and comparison with recognized varieties are essential. Condition is one of the biggest factors affecting the value of a 1978 Lincoln Memorial Cent. A circulated coin can have scratches, discoloration, worn details, stains, or contact marks that reduce collector appeal. An uncirculated example, however, has not received the normal wear associated with circulation, and can preserve much more of its original detail. Collectors also pay close attention to copper color. Professional grading services commonly distinguish brown, and red examples, with full original red color often being more desirable in high grades. PCGS lists separate 1978 Lincoln cent categories for BN, RB, and RD examples, and its recorded auction data show how dramatically price can change at the highest grades. If your 1978 no-mint mark cent is genuinely uncirculated, do not clean or polish it. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surfaces and may make the coin less desirable to serious collectors. Instead, handle it carefully by the edges and consider professional grading if the coin appears exceptionally preserved. Now let's talk about the part many viewers are most interested in, the current market value. As of 2026, a normal 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln Memorial cent is generally not a hundreds or thousands of dollars coins simply because it is uncirculated. One current value guide lists approximately $1.24 or more for an uncirculated example, while ordinary circulated pieces can remain close to face value depending on condition and the buyer's market. However, exceptional certified coins can bring substantially more. PCGS records an auction result of $4,259 for a 1978 MS67 Plus RD example sold by Heritage Auctions in 2014. That result demonstrates the key lesson. The large values are connected to an exceptionally high-grade certified coin rather than an ordinary uncirculated penny. Therefore, viewers should not assume that every 1978 no-mint mark cent is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The value can range from very little for a circulated example to significant money for an extraordinarily preserved, high-grade certified specimen or a legitimate major error. If you have a 1978 Lincoln Memorial cent without a mint mark, take a few minutes to inspect it under good lighting. First, confirm that the date is actually 1978 and that the coin has the correct Lincoln Memorial design. Next, examine the surfaces for original luster, scratches, spots, discoloration, and signs of cleaning. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait and the memorial reverse for unusual doubling or other abnormalities. Pay special attention to the color designation, because a bright original red coin can be much more desirable than a heavily toned or damaged example in the same numerical grade. If you believe you have an unusually high-quality specimen, professional certification from a respected grading service can help establish its grade and authenticity. Do not rely on a random internet listing that claims a common 1978 penny is worth thousands of dollars. Real auction records, recognized price guides, professional grading, and comparable sales provide much stronger evidence of market value. The 1978 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin with no mint mark is a fascinating piece of American history, especially because its production involved both Philadelphia and West Point, while the West Point coins carried no mint mark and cannot be distinguished from Philadelphia examples simply by appearance. Its massive production means the ordinary coin is not considered rare, but its copper composition, classic memorial design, strong potential for attractive red coloration, and possibility of exceptional grades or genuine mint errors make it worth examining. If your coin is truly uncirculated and has outstanding surfaces, sharp details, strong original red color, or a verified mint error, it may deserve closer professional evaluation. But remember, market values change with grade, certification, color designation, varieties, errors, eye appeal, and actual auction results. The values discussed here are reference market examples, not a guarantee that every 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln Memorial cent will sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars. Before buying or selling, always compare your exact coin with recent auction results and professional grading information. And if you have one of these 1978 pennies in your collection, don't spend it until you've taken a closer look. You might discover a surprisingly well-preserved piece of American coinage history. Thanks for watching.